All right, let's start off with Don. He was talking about the U.S. Open Cup. I had a quote online about it. Uh, Lovely co-host here got baited into part of his speech getting taken out of context, but I'd like to at least read off the comments that Don made, and then just kind of have a conversation on it. Is he out of line? Is he right? It seems like a lot of people in the comments below on the post were definitely not in favor of what he said, and we're definitely calling him out, rightfully so on some things, but um, the quote from Don stated that I've got to tell you from our perspective, it is a very poor reflection on what it is we're trying to do with soccer at the highest level. The games are hard to find. I'm telling you as an actual viewer, the reaction from our ownership, from our team presidents, and even our fans in terms of being able to find the games, the quality of the games. Some of the games that we've been playing in are on subpar fields. I would say that they're not games that we would want our product to be shown to a large audience. So frankly, I'm not all that disappointed that the audience is small. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but about it, but we need to get better with the US Open Cup. It's not just the proper reflection of what soccer in America at the professional level needs to be. So I'm encouraged about the summit. I hope you'll invite a group of people from the league, whether it's our teams, our chief soccer officers, presidents, obviously people from the league office. But so far, our experience as participating teams has not been positive. I just want you to be aware of that. So I know you originally had a take on this when you saw a bit of a snippet of it, kind of taken
Mhm.
out of context. But hearing the whole thing, I know you also had a tweet about it, but and for the podcast sake, what was your take on hearing the whole quote from Don here?
I think what I want to do is break this down step by step because there are quotes in there for each one that I agree with and I think that I disagree with, but there are also ways that you can approach it. So, um, a very poor reflection on what it is we're trying to do with soccer at the highest level. U.S. Open Cup is under the USSF. It's not just an MLS Cup; it's all across the nation, right? Um, when he talks about it being a poor reflection on what it is we're trying to do at the highest level, to me, he's referencing U.S. soccer's ability to create from the ground up an attractive level playing field at each level is kind of the way that I'm reading that. So in USSF's mission statement or U.S. soccer mission statement, they talk about having a player centric model, a holistic approach, learning the game through the game, all these things they teach the coaches, which coaching is getting better. Um, but they're talking about maybe facilities that aren't where it's supposed to be, as he goes on to say, availability, crowd attendance, things like that. When you go to games are hard to find as an actual viewer, reflect a reaction from our ownership, from the team presidents, even our fans in terms of being able to find the games. 100% a real, legitimate gripe. Those games were difficult to find. I've tweeted out a picture of the one that I had to watch, where literally the away team went to, so it was Flower City Union from Rochester, New York. I got a friend, my friend is head coach there. Went down to Loudoun United in DC. Loudoun was not streaming that game as a second division side in the USL Championship. The Flower City team, which is an unaffiliated fourth or fifth division side, brought their own camera to videotape it. And the camera was set up such that it cut the field in half. So it had two views. And instead of going like this, it just cut it. So the second the ball went over to half, you saw that half of the field. And then the second ball went over there, but there was a line right down the middle that you couldn't see the game. The quality is low. Absolutely fair. I think that's a really good fair. I'd love to hear your take on that. I don't know if you've been able to try and watch some of these games recently.
I haven't, but I mean, I've been following your tweets. I've been looking online at what people have been saying. I mean, at least from a broadcast perspective, I think it's kind of spot on. I mean, it's funny and quirky on a one-off game to be like, oh wow, look at this camera work where it's kind of split down the middle and it looks all funky and weird. But if that's consistently like the quality and the level of product that you're putting out at a professional level, that's terrible. Like if the Premier League was putting out stuff like that, or even if you wanted to take the FA Cup, if you want to have it cup focused, if if the FA Cup is having a game between like a championship level team and a League Two team, and the camera quality was like that, it would probably get ridiculed over in England. And I don't know why. I'm not saying it has to go to that extent here, but like, yeah, it should be called out. That's poor quality. And like, same thing for Loudon too. Like, why aren't you streaming the game? You're a second tier team. Like the cup is a great opportunity for you to get new eyes on you from people who don't normally follow your league, and you just don't stream the game at all. I just don't understand that.
Correct. And there it's always going to come back to, well, is it worth it? Monetarily, is it worth it to get there? I feel like that needs to be worked into your preseason budget. If you're not working in streaming and US Open Cup into your preseason budget and you're saying, well, now we have to host the game and set up a stream and do all this stuff and it's going to cost us X amount of dollars and you can't afford that, that's not a problem for US soccer. That's a problem with you and your budgeting saying, okay, we aren't prepared to do stuff that we should be prepared to do.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't feel like MLS has a responsibility to like fund these teams to so that they can afford to put like broadcast them. So I think that if anything, that should be on USL to do. USL should give them a
Oh, yeah.
budget to broadcast this. I don't think that it's on Don to go give money to the USL leagues because they don't have the money or they didn't budget it correctly to be able to broadcast the games. Like I know MLS has a lot of money compared to these other leagues, and that's part of like the whole issue with ProRel. And I'm not diving down that road, but um, I don't think that it's also his responsibility to fix the problems of USL because that's not his league. It's not like a lower tier league that sends teams to MLS. There are occasions where sometimes the lower tier teams become MLS teams, but it's not ProRel where every season like you're directly impacted by USL. So I don't think that it should be his job to fix the problems of USL.
Correct. And here's the thing, right? USL for the longest time was an ESPN Plus league. USL One is on ESPN Plus. I believe the championship is still on ESPN Plus. Why is ESPN Plus not making it an effort to, at the very least, get out to the teams who have the contracts with them, the USLC, the USL One? Why is ESPN not adding that into their contract, saying we'll put those games on our platform as well? Yes, it's behind a paywall, but at least the quality is the same. At least the level. And again, this is something I actually didn't look into on ESPN Plus at the time because I had found the stream I needed. Big thanks to US Open Cup on Twitter for giving us those streams. To my knowledge, ESPN Plus wasn't really there. I think they dropped it. I'm going to do a quick double check here, but why do we not have a single Apple TV, ESPN Plus, CBS Sports? I mean, there are tons of them that could pick this up and really put a good product out there for our cup if the negotiation was there. And the problem is that I don't see the negotiation there. Nobody's even taking this from any level, from MLS, from USL, from US Soccer, from any level. Nobody's putting this. Nobody's putting this cup in priority, and that's a problem because it, as you mentioned, it is something that could be very, very good. Yeah, USL Championship, USL League One are both on ESPN Plus, but um, there's no tab that says, "Hey, um, let's go to US Open Cup." Why? Right? That's silly. That is something that absolutely should be there. Again, I'm not saying ESPN needs to go out and film, you know, Flower City Union versus some PDL team from Utica playing on high school turf. I'm not asking for it. But if you're gonna go out and make a commitment to USL Championship and One as the two lower level pro leagues in this country, that cup should be included in it. Or somebody should just own the cup and say, we are going to make sure that we have a proper stream for every single cup. It's possible. Is it easy? No, but it's possible.
I mean, if you're ESPN Plus or you're Apple or you're CBS or whoever, do you really see like the value in the cup? Like obviously the FA Cup is massive in England, but here it doesn't seem like teams really care about it. I mean, MLS teams usually don't play a lot of starters, if any at all. And the gap between MLS and the lower leagues is so large that I just don't think people care that much about it. Like most people are fans of, I would say, the MLS teams. There are a few fans of the USL teams that will, of course, watch their teams and root them on. And, this is like their CONCACAF Champions League for them, like their moment to kind of like have a chance to play with the teams that are above them in terms of like reputation and quality. But I don't think that the product is really there for a CBS or an ESPN Plus to be like, okay, let's go snatch this up so we can broadcast it so that maybe I don't know how many people watch, but I don't know if they have numbers on that, but
It
I would
might
imagine
not
it's probably not that high.
it might not be worth the like the first couple rounds. Like I'm not asking you to go out and get round 1 and 2 of all of these things, because at the end of the day, realistically, that's a bunch of amateur teams, and I'd love to. I would love to watch those games if I had the time. However, it doesn't make sense to do that. Now the teams can put on their own streams, sure, go. But because one, the size of our country makes it very difficult, right? This isn't England where you can make a train trip up the coast for to go record a game. It's not that easy. That being said, I believe I saw a tweet that yeah, so US Open Cup again, guy very very good for US Open Cup. Have a really good idea of the like what's going on. Also gives out live streams and stuff, so stuff to keep an eye on. But yeah, so it looks like CBS Sports did pick up a couple of games. So there are streaming outlets that are now picking up MLS games because it's worth it, right? Um, that being said, how do we get that to go earlier? I think is going to be the question. I know I'm kind of spacey here. I'm trying to find the right. All 16 rounds of 32 games live. Okay, sorry. This is the tweet I was going to. You can your magical editing skills will make this sound really good. I know it will. So the Bleacher Report football app or YouTube channel will host some of them. U.S. Soccer's YouTube will host some of them. CBS Sports Golazo Network will host some of them. All of them, to my knowledge, free streaming, not behind a paywall. So people are picking them up after MLS joins. How do we then convince them to do that for the USL teams that enter the round before? I think that's the next step to make this better. Because right now, having those sketchy streams is just lowering the credibility of what we're trying to do. You know what I mean?
It's going to be a tough sell to get people to convince them to kind of pick up those rounds before MLS because again, it's like how many people are realistically watching? Like I was just kind of looking at some numbers that are on Wikipedia for US Open Cup, at least the final. I was looking at 2019 final just as a specific example, but
Oh,
that
really? I
was
wonder why. Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm looking at it because it is I think the highest attendance for US Open Cup final ever is 35,709 is at least what it has it on Wikipedia. It was Atlanta, obviously. But I wanted to look up comparatively to what their attendance was for that season. Uh, Obviously, Atlanta has games where they open up the entire stadium and that kind of inflates their numbers. And they have games where they make it a bit smaller and that will contract their numbers. I don't know the case exactly with this Open Cup final, but Atlanta averaged 52,510 per game that season. In this cup final, they were 17,000 less than average. And again, maybe that's just how they set up the stadium, but I mean, the attendance numbers here just are not good. There's been like since MLS started, there's been five US Open Cup finals that have had over 20,000 in attendance. Two of them were Seattle, one was Atlanta. One of them was SKC versus Red Bull, which barely touched over 20,000.
I
And
remember
then
that game.
the latest one in Orlando had 25.
So
So it's just like it doesn't seem
so the
like people
most
care.
recent ones. So 2022, They didn't have it in 21 or 20. So 19, 18, and then the two Seattle ones, which were 16 and 15. Is that right?
1917 and 2010, 2011.
Okay. They were a little bit.
20, 2012 to 2016 was below like and pretty low below 20K.
It wasn't
As
close.
yeah, I mean it's like 18,900, 17,600, 15,000, 14,000, 16,000. And then 2018 was Houston versus Philly. That was 16,000. Like the numbers suck.
So
I just don't think people care about the cup.
that brings up another conversation too about teams promoting it. I never see a hype video. I never see anything more than a, oh, we're playing tonight tweet, right? There's never any build up to it. Teams don't take it seriously, so that's why people don't show up to it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff we can dive into about how we can make the cup better. Um, and we haven't even broken down the rest of Donnie's statement here. Um, the cup in and of itself has its own issues because people compare it, and this is the way I'm going to finish this. People compare it to the FA Cup, the DFK Pokal, all of these big European cups where teams are supporting their teams from the lowest level to the top level that they've been supporting for years. We don't have that longevity here. And the people who have been supporting those teams for the same amount of time they could have been supporting MLS are realizing what life looks like after 150 years of support. US Open Cup has a lot of work to do, but it's not getting to FA Cup levels over. There's lots of things that they can do. Again, it's all about money because we know what happens once money runs dry. Teams fold, leagues fold, systems go to crap. But if it's not being promoted properly from the teams that they're participating in, they're not garnering that interest like you just mentioned with your attendance numbers, and it's always going to kind of fall short. This also kind of gets fed into from the Eurosnob perspective of, oh, well, it's not the FA Cup, so why do I care? Even in the FA Cup, the English teams aren't playing all their starting 11 until the last couple rounds anyway. Tons of things that we can talk about, but I do want to move on here because there was one other one that stood out to me, and it was about
Wait,
the
before you move on, I do
you.
because I do have
Gross.
something to say on the point that you made.
Yeah, but nobody
Uh,
cares. It's all about me.
this is my podcast. I'm hosting this one. Um, to your point of talking about the FA Cup and even English teams aren't playing their full starting 11 in cup games, and I'm weary about bringing this up because this could go down a whole tangent, but the thing is, England can rotate. The top teams in England can rotate teams and still have superstars playing in their team, whereas MLS, because of their financial restrictions, when they rotate their team, similar to how England rotates their team, and now all of a sudden the quality is like noticeably dropped.
So the saying is all roads lead to Rome. All problems in US soccer lead back to MLS financial restrictions.
Yeah, probably.
We've had this but again, right? At the end of the day, everything comes back to money. Do we need the restrictions? Yes, because the second we start losing parity and the second we start doing things that European teams do, we don't have the soccer attachment that would allow certain teams to survive going down, right? This isn't like a New York Jets, New York Giants where they've been garbage for 15 years and they still sell out 80,000 fans a game. It's just not. And people don't want to accept that fact, and that's okay. But when you look at the numbers, it's not what it is. American fans, especially when it comes to soccer, for the most part, are extremely flimsy. The second they have something better to do, they're going to do that thing better, right? Especially when you start putting these teams up in big areas, Cincinnati, New York, LA. One of those teams starts going bad. Again, LA is different. They've been here a while. New York's different. They've been here a while. Cincinnati has been here a while in USL, right? But if you pop up a team in Charlotte and they start doing poorly, as we've seen, their numbers are going to fall through the floor, especially when the Hurricanes are playing and doing well. The Panthers are going to start doing well. And if the Hornets get better, they've got three different options where they don't need to worry about this. If they don't love the game, they don't love what they're doing, numbers are going to fall off. We've been down that road. We will come back to it again. We what we should do, we should just record like clips and just insert them all the time. Every time we hit a talking point, just be like, insert clip
Cut to
of
this clip.
insert clip of financial talk, insert clip of why we can't go down, why we can't survive teams going down right now. It'll just save us so much time.
No, but it's a really good point that you bring up because it's like you look at Germany, England, Italy, like all the different leagues in Europe, and like yes, I'm sure there are other sports there that are popular, but there is not the level of competition in sports fandom as there is in the US, where you have four other top leagues that have been around for very long periods of time, have developed dedicated hardcore fanships over the years, just like the teams in Europe have. You know, England, France, Germany, they've been around for very long periods of time and have been able to do the same kind of fandom building that the other American sports teams have. So to your point, you know, if teams are performing bad, if owners aren't investing in the team and getting star players that people want to watch, they're going to stop watching because they can go watch, like you said, they'll go watch the Hornets, they'll go watch the Hurricanes. Why go watch? Why go watch a team that sucks and that the owner doesn't care about?
Yeah. So right, our good friend, the politician of ProRel, put out a tweet about the Wrexham parade and the Napoli parade after they won their title and they won promotion. Like, oh, look at all things that are great with ProRel. Look at what America could be if we had ProRel. And every comment was the exact same. Wrexham is the second or third oldest club in the history of association football. Those guys are 5 generations deep into supporting that team, no matter what league they were in. They're there because they were born into it. So I ask people this all the time. Why do you support the Miami Dolphins? Why are you a fan of the Phoenix Suns? My dad was. My uncle got me into it. My grandparents got me into it. And we've had this conversation. When you have family lineage ties to a team, you just get born into that team. You watch your parents live and die by that team. The New York Jets are my favorite example. My dad lives and dies by the 16 weeks the New York Jets are either very good or most times very, very bad.
17 weeks now.
Yeah. Soon to be 17 very, very good weeks. Thank you, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh boy.
Um, but we go through it every single week because that's just what we do. It's what we've been doing for, I'm now 26. God, 26 years old now. I've been doing it for, I took a little bit of a break to do soccer stuff, but my brother has been there for 24 years. My dad's been doing it for 60 something years. His dad before him was doing it for 80 something years, right? We're 27 years old as a league. What? I am nearly as old as our league. I don't have a parent to be like, oh, yeah, this is the team you're going to support and you're going to live or die by. I had to bring Pops into it. I had to bring Matt into it. I had to bring you into it. You have to realize where we're starting. Will we get there? Yes. Are we getting there fast enough for people? No, because people have the patience of a dog. There is you need to be patient. Anyways, we are going to talk about this forever. I want to move on to this last quote about the
Yeah.
games that we've been playing are on subpar fields. The audacity of Donnie Garber to criticize the USL fields after 9 years of letting the New York City Football Club play at Yankee Stadium. 9 years, and you're going to come out and the first thing you're going to say is, oh, there are some games being played on subpar fields. Enough, Don. Enough. That is, you had some points here that made it look okay. That right there made you look like an idiot. You don't get to walk around just because City Football Group is paying you dirty oil money to continue to play in a baseball stadium and then look around and be like, oh, New Mexico United plays on a baseball field. I don't really like showing that to the people that we're trying to get into this game. Criminal. Absolutely despicable. And I know they're getting a new field. And honestly, I can't wait for it because then that whole argument is gone about playing surface. But it's still not acceptable that he comes out and took a shot at somebody about field levels when you've got New York City playing on a baseball stadium. Unacceptable.
I think you just wanted an opportunity to dunk more on NYCFC.
Honestly, no,
And
I want to
granted, you
dunk on
took it.
Don. I want to dunk on Don for it because guess what? New York City took what they were given, right? They were given an opportunity to get a stadium in 3 years, 5 years, whatever it was. When it didn't happen, they took even more leeway. And it all came from one decision maker. It came from Don. It's on him that our standards are what they are. You cannot at all take that shot like that. I think that's completely out of line, and it kind of shows his short sightedness as to where we stand versus where they stand.
I'm not going to comment anything on the stadiums because I really don't know anything about USL stadiums and the quality of USL stadiums. So I'm not going to comment on whether or not it's a fair statement, but I feel like it sucks because I think he had good points in a lot of his statement, and then you have one point like that, and people will just harp on it and destroy that point, and then a lot of people will look at it and be like, "Oh, well, then he has no idea what he's talking about."
Sure, and
Just
I'm not
kind
trying
of
to.
disregard the rest of what he was saying.
Yep, I understand that. And I'm not trying to disregard things, but that's the one that's going to stand out because of the fact that people have been complaining about this for 9 years. And he basically has just been like, yeah, they're giving us money. We're okay with it. But because
Hmm.
USL isn't giving you money, now you're going to take shots at him. That's a cheap shot. I don't like it. I think it's poor. Um, and here's the thing, right? The other side of it is there's this whole list of qualifications you need to have a pro team based off of your stadium, and people are always complaining about, oh, well, we should get rid of them and anybody should be allowed to play anywhere. I don't think that's the case either. I think that's a little bit of a stretch too. I'm not looking for, Red Bull versus New York City to be played at Burn Intermediate School. Like, I think that's silly. But it's there is a definite there's a definite reasonable shout to have certain regulations for your stadium, because at the end of the day, if you want us to be viewed at properly from anybody, whether it be the Eurosnobs local, the Europeans across, the South Americans, whatever it may be, and the first game they see is, oh, I'm going to turn on, 2017, I'm going to watch David Villa play, and he's playing in a baseball outfield. Immediately, reputation goes down the window. You need to have some sort of level, and I'm not even saying it needs to be a soccer specific stadium. I'd love everybody to have, but sometimes the space just isn't there. I get that, but you can't just allow those shots to go out. I don't know. I found that in poor taste, personally.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to comment on it because I don't know anything about USL stadiums. All I know is that NYC Stadium sucks.
That's good. I like that.
I'm sure there's other MLS teams that don't have great stadiums, but I don't think there's none that I can think of off the top of my head that's like NYC level bad.
Right. The last point that I would want to get to is the idea that he's not disappointed that the audience is small. If you are a person in a position that is trying to grow the game full scale, countrywide, anytime an audience is smaller than you expect, you should be disappointed, regardless of what the level of play is. That tells me that he's still worried about what Eurosnobs think and hasn't recognized that even if we put them on a pristine, even if we put them in Wembley, playing it at perfect pitch, ball rolling without a bounce, and it's the best 11 players versus the next best 11 players, they're always going to find an excuse for something. So if you're worried about what they have to say and you're happy that they're not seeing the bad stuff, then you're not going to get them to see the good stuff either. But I don't think the idea that being less disappointed about small audiences is a good thing to say. I'm not thrilled with it. Now, I like the fact that he came out and said that it's about getting better with the US Open Cup. I liked how he phrased it in a productive, improving mindset. Like, we can get better from here. But to say that's not the proper reflection of what soccer is in America and the professional level it needs to be, I think he's out of touch with what soccer in America actually is. I think he has an idea of what he wants it to be and doesn't recognize what's happening underneath his league at the USL level, at USL 1, USL 2, PDL. I don't think he understands where it's at. And that's my worry, is that if he's going to be in this head of the top level, he needs to understand where the bottom level is and try and make that gap, bridge that gap. I'm worried.
I guess that goes back to, is this Don's job to bridge that gap, or is it USL's job to catch up?
Yes, I think it's both. I think if so, there are a couple things. First off, I think pulling MLS two teams out of USL Championship allowed USL to get a stronger foothold in other areas. So that by that being right, you're not taking the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, who are a bunch of grown men, and playing them against teenagers in high school for Red Bull 2, right? You separated that much like the Premier League separated their development teams into PL2. Um, and now you've got the USL Championship feeling like a proper championship league. Roster rules are what they are, and we've talked about them. But one of the things that might benefit is being able to loan players from any of those teams into the USL Championship. Give them that pathway to go and bring the talent up, right? So if I'm a Red Bull supporter and I see um, this new guy that we signed, Dancor, the center mid from Mali, and he's supposed to be the next best thing, but he's not getting minutes for 3 years, and he gets loaned to a local side. Maybe I'll watch him, right? I'm not saying you're going to take, your big DP signing and loan him out, but it's not against MLS's interest to make USL better, because MLS is signing from USL consistent, right? We've seen a ton of USL signings this year to fill that middle part of the bench. So if you make that better, you can make your teams better and make the overall product better. Now, USL on its own has to do a whole bunch better getting themselves up, promoting themselves, getting more people out there. I mean, again, you've got teams like Lou City who are 60,000 a game with players getting sold to Europe. That's a great start. But then you've got teams like, I don't know, I can't even guess, Tulsa Athletic. No, I think they're out. They're outside USL. Um,
FC Tulsa.
um, Standings. Let's check it out here. Yeah. Hartford Athletic, right? Hartford Athletic just started up. Or Las Vegas Lights, who are signing the older MLS players, trying to get people in and not quite getting it done, right? Eric Cuba Torres, Andrew Carlton. This is just Atlanta too. Hold on. Emmanuel Ledesma. Oh, wow. But again, right? Um, that was fun. This is cool. If you go back, right, and you look at these teams, they're made up of a bunch of former MLS players, but because MLS isn't big, USL, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both, personally.
Yeah, I think that the USL has a long way to go to catch up. I mean, I'm looking at attendance numbers, and let me pull up 2022 so I have like full year numbers. The highest average attendance in USL was New Mexico with 10,600 on average,
Yes.
which is 2,000 on average lower than the worst MLS team in terms of attendance.
Yep.
There is clearly a gap there, like
Yeah.
significantly a gap. I mean, majority of USL teams are averaging like 5,000 people to watch the games, and it's not going to improve because they're not going to be able to get more money into the league if people aren't going to go watch them. And I don't know if that means that MLS has to step in and give them money to like help them out. But again, I don't know if I see the full benefit to MLS in doing that,
So let
because
me,
they're still a growing league just in themselves, just on a different scale.
I like that point. The fact that you can't help somebody until you help yourself, right? The plane falling out of the sky. Put your mask on first and then help whoever you can. Until MLS is in a stable point, and we're relatively stable, way better than we were in early 2000s, right? But we're still not perfectly stable, right? One bad year nearly cost us. Um, that being said, the I don't want to phrase this. What do you think gets more people to watch second division soccer when there's no chance that they can become first division soccer? Because this is one of the points that the pro rel argument makes that I've been intrigued by. Because in the grand scheme of the first team, right, or the first league, teams will go down and suffer badly. However, when teams go up, will there be an increased draw into that team, right? So if Indy 11, for example, made a giant jump and got into MLS, are we going to see a jump of 7,000-8,000 fans? That's going to help them stay up, and will those fans stick around if they go back down? I don't know, but now that we know that's not a thing, what do you do to increase attendance at these lower level games?
That's a tough question. I don't know if I would know. I feel like you just have to improve the quality of player that you bring in. Um, and I think that has to start with just getting owners who have more money and are willing to spend more money. But I just think, if you have the money to like spend at an MLS level, the way that MLS is expanding, you just take your shot at getting into MLS. I don't think you take your shot at going to buy a USL championship team, hoping that you can build them up to an MLS level. Because I just think that would be a lot harder to do than just to sink your money into MLS where, you kind of have an already set expectation of what your team is going to be capable of and what they're going to be able to do financially. Because I think it's similar to any other American sport. I think it revolves around the stars and how you market your star players. I think it would be better for MLS to do better to market their star players, kind of like the NBA does. The NBA, I think, markets their star players very well. I think people will watch a team just to watch the star players. People watch the Lakers for LeBron. I mean, obviously, there are tons of Lakers fans because of their history, but people watch the Warriors for Steph Curry. Tons of people do. Um, so I think MLS and even USL Championship, I think that should be the ultimate goal. But obviously, there's a lot more steps to get to that point. You can't just be like, oh, just market whoever the best player is on your team. Like, it's a hard question to answer. I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question, and I think it would take a group of people to truly be able to execute on whatever the right answer is.
So here's my question. Why not put the designated player rule into USL? Why not allow?
Are they willing? Are they going to spend?
Well, and that's my question. I don't understand where our ownership is here. But if we've got a state, we finally, for the first time since 2017, have a stable second division, right? Second division in England is still signing tons of promising, bigger name players. Again, older from Premier League sides, but we're different. We're not signing these people to try and get up. We're signing them to try and bring more fans in, right? Phoenix Rising was a great example when Drogba went in there, right? Drogba went in. Maybe you can help me out and find some Phoenix Rising attendance rosters while I look up some roster rules here. But yeah, my question is, why don't we allow the USL Championship to start doing the spending that MLS started doing, right? MLS was what, 15-ish when the designated player rule started. USL has been up and down, but they finally got a bit of stability in them where they might be able to start putting big money into big names and then flipping them overseas to get more money, start building the price of those guys up. I don't know. I think that might be a good way to go about it. Again, I'm not an expert in the financial aspects of the USL Championship. Granted, I'm not an expert in the financial aspects of anything, but I wouldn't be. I would enjoy to see that that idea of spending there. Again, keep it out. I don't even know if they've got. I'm assuming they have a roster cap limit. But if you're going to have a cap limit, then go right ahead and open it up and allow 2 or 3 players to break that cap. Or start with one. Start with one player that breaks your cap. Everybody gets one. See what you can bring in. See who you can pull. See what type of availability you can. Because guess what? You go ahead and develop those players. Now MLS teams are looking back at you. All right, we're going to sign this guy out of your team. We're going to give you $2 million on top of what you paid for him to get him into our squad and make us better. Okay, now we've got that connection, right? You need a player. Your center mid got hurt. Hey, I've got a youth player here. Maybe we'll loan him out to you for a little bit. See what he can do at the next level. Because I think technically USL 1 and MLS Next Pro are the same level. But if you've got somebody in MLS Next Pro that you don't think is ready to make the jump to MLS, but could get to that second level, okay, we're going to loan him out to you through there. Start creating some interconnected network with our levels in this pyramid right now and see where it takes us. There are, and I've said this multiple times, there are legs to stand on in terms of the reform to U.S. soccer movement that this guy keeps putting out. And some of them are completely batshit crazy. You can bleep that if you want. Some of them are so far out there that it's like, all right, you are clickbaiting for views, whatever. But there are some that are true, right? We aren't connected. This isn't a connected, it's a pyramid, but it's not connected. We're separate levels on a staircase. If we can connect those, you start to see better cohesion between the leagues, between the game itself. That money then gets put back into the community, putting up little fields or putting up training facilities, starting up youth movements. That connection there is how you can build from. So let's see if we can open up. I think the question is less now about what can MLS do, and now more about, now that we've talked about it, more about what USL can do in their set and what their owners are willing to do, right? Where you have to have the owners who are willing to do it. So just to throw it out there and see how that works.
So to your point on Drogba and Phoenix Rising, I don't know if there was something that happened in the season, but in 2016, before Drogba was there, they averaged 1,000. Something feels kind of weird about that. I don't know if that's super accurate, but Drogba joined in 2017, in which Phoenix's average attendance jumped to 6,000. And then the season after that, it was like 6,500. And basically since then, they've been at 6,000 plus per season. So,
and that's the point, right? If you can get, I know he came in as an owner, right? Tim Howard at Memphis was the same idea, but one player, and right, let's talk about early MLS. Early MLS, what were their one players? Old, famous, retired guys. It is not a good look for a lot of teams. But guess what? If you need to start getting your capital up and start getting people to watch your games and be like, oh, I remember when he played at blank, who are you more likely to get remembered? A guy from Europe, where a bunch of people have watched them, or a guy from MLS that is just getting started? You're more likely to get that connection through people who are recognizable, regardless of whether they are playing well or not. Because right now, and this is the conversation we used to have in accounting in high school, it doesn't matter what the product on the field is if you're trying to get your revenue up, your season tickets up, and people watching your league. You need faces. So your first signing is a big face with jersey sales, attendance, all that stuff. Then once you get a stable base from that signing of, as you mentioned, you jumped your fans by 5,000 a game, or 5,000 a game, and it kept that 5,000 for 6 years. Once you get there, then you start putting that money back into bigger players who can get better performances out of, who you can get better performances out of. It's a game plan that is a slow one, but it works.
yeah, I was actually, before you kind of jumped down that road, I was going to ask you, should they just go down the MLS route, basically, just kind of follow that same trajectory? And because I was thinking the same thing you were, it's like, take the opportunity, go find someone who's kind of dwindling down on their career, but was a massive name in their prime. Like maybe in a few years, you somehow convince like Marcelo to come play for you. Like that's a massive name that'll get people in the door.
Well, and that's like, the thing, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Marcelo is not going to get the people who have never, not only going to get the people who have never watched a USL game before, it's going to get people who watch MLS too, be like, oh, I want to watch this guy play, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to, again, create that network, bridge that network. It's there.
Yeah. Yeah. And Marcelo may not necessarily, in a few years, he may not be at the MLS level. And I think that's why it could be good for USL to capitalize on that. It'd be like, people know the name. People like there's technical abilities that won't necessarily go away with age that people would love to watch. Like he would be a fantastic player to go even just watch on TV. And to your point, once you get people in the door, just like with Phoenix, they'll stay. They'll become a fan. Like 5,000 more people started going to games seemingly to watch Drogba. And I'm sure, majority of those people probably fell in love with the club and they were fans for life now. And hence why their numbers have stayed where they are.
And that's why you need to do it, because at the end of the day, you don't get people loving your club until they've been there. The only time you can love a club is when they're overseas that you have never been to. And that's because you buy into the history and the how do you say? You buy into the history, you buy into the atmosphere, you buy into all the things that is so hyped up on TV because they put so much money into it. We haven't, and that's a whole nother issue. But I think that's the best step forward, personally.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they should kind of just mimic the MLS route. But we should really move on because we still had another topic to talk about, and we have gone way off tangent on this one.